Thank you everyone for joining the Overseas Volunteers of Better India Yoga series. Today is a session Yoga and Dharma with Mr. Rajiv Malhotra. I now give to Mr. Amit Bhatt, volunteer of OVBI, to take it from here. Amit.
Yeah, thanks, Mehul. Thanks everyone for joining this Google Hangout. We have done an earlier Hangout with Rajiv ji before, and this is a series of Hangouts we've been doing till the culmination day of June 21st, International Day of Yoga. I'll give a brief about who we are as an organization. Overseas Volunteer for a Better India is a patriotic group of passionate young Indians in the USA and across globe who have come together for the betterment of India and the global Indian community. We launched in May 2013 and are driven by inspired NRIs to support initiatives in India and tackle issues of the Indian community. So OVBI is the overseas arm of Volunteer for Better India. We believe every individual can make a difference if we come together. So what we do is to support the VBI movement in India, do the advocacy for India and Indians worldwide. We support institutional reform and systemic change in India and build a strong Indian community in the US. We have been kind of associated with a few projects, social impact projects like Project Udan, which is a pilot project for the Sonagachi red light area in Kolkata for creating a safe haven for 50 girls where they can lead a normal childhood. Also Project Ujas, which is Light a Home, where we donate a solar lamp for the betterment of people who do not have lights in their home. We were also part of the voter awareness campaign during 2014 elections in India. We are supporting School of Good Governance. We provide scholarships to 10 to 12 students a year who can join public policy. And we are part of the Sri University of School of Good Governance. So Yogathon is another initiative of OVBI to showcase the soft power of India across US. And we are organizing Yogathon events across 100 US cities in partnership with the Indian government through Indian consulates in different cities. You can visit www.yogaday.com to get more information. Now I would like to invite Shri Rajiv Malhotra and just start with a brief bio of his. Rajiv Malhotra ji is an Indian-American philanthropist, public speaker, and writer on current affairs, world religions, and cross-cultural encounters between East and West. A physicist and computer scientist by training, his career until his early retirement at age of 44 spanned the corporate world as a senior executive, strategic consultant, and a successful entrepreneur in the information technology and media industries. In 1995, he founded the Infinity Foundation, seeking to foster a better understanding of the Dharma religious traditions of India, most notably Hinduism and Buddhism, both in the US and on the subcontinent. The foundation has given more than 400 grants for research, education, and community work. He is author of groundbreaking books like Invading the Sacred, Breaking India, Being Different, and his latest Indra's Net. And he's working on another book right now, which we all are awaiting for. He is the first ever recipient of the Lifetime Achievement Award from the World Association of Vedic Studies and of the Thomas Jefferson Award from the Indian American Civic Forum. And he sits on the boards of numerous institutions of higher education, such as the chairman of the Board of Governors of the India Studies at the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth, and he's also part of the Asian Studies Education Committee. So at this point, I will hand it over to Sri Rajiv Malhotra ji to take it over from here.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm very happy that India has finally accepted yoga as part of its great heritage and not tried to ignore it in the name of secularism, which is what had happened in the past. I'll just make some brief remarks and then I want to have an interactivity, so I'd like questions so people can think about their questions and send them to the moderators in advance so that we can look at them. You know, I've been in the US for 44 years and have been very, consistently studying the whole movement of Indians and Indian civilization and heritage and traditions and all that in this country and in India. And I found that when I interviewed the major gurus, for instance, Yogi Amrit Desai, who's now in Florida. He trained 20 to 25% of all the white Americans who learned yoga from the 60s and 70s, when there was this big craze. Everybody wanted to learn yoga. There were 4 or 5 major teachers. There was Swami Sachidanand, there was Yogi Amrit Desai, there were a few others. This is before Osho, before Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who taught more like meditation, the the mental mind management kind of a technique. But the technique of physical yoga, and then take using this physical yoga to go to the mental states, was pioneered in this country by people like Yogi Amrit Desai, Swami Sachidanand, and a few others. And I know Yogi Amrit Desai and a few of the other pioneers. I've gone and interviewed them for a long time. So the, the consistent thing I heard is that the reason all these people after independence came to the United States is because Indians were not interested in that era. Indians were not interested in their heritage. They just got independence. They wanted to become more like British, more like white Americans, and so on. They were more interested in becoming westernized, anglicized, showing how modern they are, how progressive they are, how materialistically advanced they are. And they were just not interested in these traditions. So the major gurus came to the West to find students. And they found students. It became very successful, very popular. However, they did not have the foresight to convert them. These people in the 60s and 70s, white Americans, wanted to become Hindu. There were many of them would say, give me a mantra, initiate me, give me a Hindu identity. I'd like to become a Hindu. Only much later in the 80s, 70s and 80s, Prabhupada started ISKCON, and he was the first one who actually converted people and gave them a new identity, new dress, new way of life, and everything. But the rest of the yoga teachers continued saying you can do the same yoga no matter who you are. You can remain Christian, you can remain Jewish, don't convert, everything is the same, all religions are one, doesn't matter. So I think our gurus, not understanding the global dynamics, gave up a very big opportunity, and in the process facilitated yoga getting digested into Western idiom, Western philosophy, Western history. Okay, so the problems we are now finding about yoga getting digested and taken away from Indian heritage and Indian roots was started by the Indian gurus, who had a chance to convert all their yoga students. By now we would have had 25 million white American Hindus had the yoga gurus started the trend that you convert, you get a name, you get initiated, you chant certain mantras, in other words, a whole change of lifestyle. So by giving away some asanas here, some meditation there, some vegetarianism ideas there, some Vedanta philosophy there, scattered and fragmented, like a buffet, like a flea market. You go and pick and choose what you want, and you just create a little on your platter. You create you pick and choose this thing, that thing, and make your own concoction. Giving Hinduism in that way was a very serious mistake, because now people think there is no such thing as a Hinduism anyway. It's just an amalgamation, a collection of all kind of things that are random, and you can even put these same things in Christianity or Islam or Judaism. It doesn't matter. So even Hindus themselves are confused. So the integral unity of Hinduism has been kind of diluted and given and destroyed, undermined by our own people. Now, I've written a lot about this, and I'm not going to give you repeat the whole discussion. And, I'll answer the questions people ask. But my sense is that in the last 15-20 years, I see a change positively. 20 years ago, when I used to go around and giving lectures that we are losing yoga, we ought to be taking yoga. Most of the teachers of yoga in the United States are white Americans. Why not Indians? Most of the students who go to these classes are also not Indians. Most of the economy in terms of owning the yoga journals and magazines and conferences and different shows that are happening, all of that is also non-Indian. Why aren't practicing Hindus in that? 20 years ago, I used to get kind of laughter. People used to make fun of this idea. People used to think I'm being very primitive or very radical, even some people thought. And nobody in the Indian embassy here in Washington wanted to even talk to me on this. Nobody in the consulate wanted to know about it or have a lecture on yoga, because it was either an embarrassment or we are too secular, we don't believe in these things. This is such a lot of nonsense. We've lost almost 70 years after independence, giving away our soft power advantage. And the students of yoga actually wanted this from us. It is not that they ran away and we are blaming Christians and all that. That happened later. The Christianization of yoga started later, because these yoga students, the white yoga students, did not get a home in the Hindu organizations. People were not willing to accept them as Hindus, did not know how to accept white people or convert them. So these people were both, had dual identity. They were Christian or Jew on one side, and they were also practicing these techniques, Hindu techniques, on the other side, and they were trying to reconcile them. And the Hindu guru would not help them reconcile, because the Hindu guru just doesn't know enough about the Abrahamic religions to be able to do that. So the Hindu guru would say, oh, it's all the same, doesn't matter, you can go to church and you can praise Jesus, and you can also do yoga, and if you don't like Om, you can say Amen. You know, all this complete nonsense. Hindu gurus started all this. And even today, I would say 98% of the Hindu pravachans and teachers and people in Hindu temples and acharyas and all that are still muddled up, still mixed up about what is it that's distinct and why is it distinct and how it is not digestible into the Abrahamic traditions, and how the attempts to digest are actually bad for us. They're distorting us. What are the countermeasures? These kind of things have only now started, and I'm happy that they've started. I've been working very hard at this. Finally, there is traction. Finally, there are people who are interested in this. Now, having said that, that the trend has been positive compared to 20 years ago, I will tell you that even today, many of our people, including in the government, are quite muddled up. They are thinking that maybe if we secularize yoga, if we show it as a sort of a kind of a, available equally in the context of any religion, not part of Hinduism, not part of any faith, they think that maybe we'll market it better, it'll be more successful. I think it's a very serious blunder, and this is happening because our own people do not understand the philosophy. They only understand some asanas, and maybe they understand some mantra technique or something, but they have not understood the deep metaphysics, the deep cosmology that yoga is part of, and that it cannot be separated from. They have not looked at how attempts to decouple it from the metaphysics are actually not authentic, and how they're creating a problem. So my concern is that we are now doing this yoga day, and we are popularizing soft power more or less like a brand, more or less like a fashion, more or less, but not something that is. I think the people doing it are still not very solidly sure of what is non-translatable about it. What is that you cannot pluck out and graft it onto a new metaphysics? What will go wrong? What will be lost if the basic basic ideas of yoga are removed and Christianized, westernized, secularized? So I feel that this is the problem we're facing, and now there is this controversy on whether this yoga DVD they'll announce, this video will have Om. I think it should have not only Om, it has to explain that yoga is the whole Patanjali Yoga Sutra is talks about guna, the guna theories, that is part of it. It talks about the nature of the Atman, the nature of the self. It talks about Ishwar. It talks about mantra. There are all these things. And Patanjali is not the only yoga system. We should talk about Kashmir Shaivism, which has a yoga system, a very, very profound yoga system, and so on. So there's many yogic philosophers in India. Westerners have taken these apart, point by point, and digested them, written thousands of dissertations and hundreds of books and so on. Our own people are doing a very superficial job, and our own people are often the students of the Westerner, learning from them whatever they can, and being very appreciative of it. So I do not feel very comfortable and very secure, even though we are celebrating, and I want to be part of the celebration, and I want to be very thankful that we are doing this. But I think it's a very, very small step, and a lot more needs to be happening. So with that, I'll stop and take people's questions and comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajiv ji. That was very enlightening.
Thank you, Rajiv ji, for that brief introduction. Now, yeah, we can start the Q&A. Mehul, you want to go first?
Right. Yes, Amit. Rajiv ji, that was very enlightening. We always find the way you talk about subjects in a very holistic way. It's very educational for all our audience. We just wanted to take the history kind of a little bit back. Can you please comment on the earliest origins of yoga, like when it started and some of the earliest recordings of yoga?
See, the origins of yoga are in the Veda itself, because in the Veda, when they talk about yagna, which is the Veda is full of yagna. People think yagna is only external yagna of fire ceremony. You doing something around the fire, but the same yagna is also an inner yagna. It's the whole meditation system. The Gyan Yoga is a part. It comes out of the Veda, and the Hatha Yoga is a part of the same yagna, because in what you are doing is you are taking the principle of yagna, the idea of rhythm of the cosmic patterns, the cosmic nature. You are taking those and discovering them inside the body and aligning yourself. Yagna means alignment. Okay, so it is not just the fire ritual you do is just one aspect of yagna, one way to do it, but the more profound yagnas are in with yourself. And so yoga as a system of yagna has to be understood. And once you understand that yoga is a system of yagna, then you know that its origin is in the Veda itself. And then the question comes, historically, how old is the Veda? That becomes the question. And we see evidence of Vedic culture as far back as several thousands of years. We see it not only in Ramayana, which is itself very old. We see it in the physical evidence. We see in the Indus Saraswati civilization, which is now being dated earlier and earlier and earlier. And we are seeing that off the coast of Gujarat in Dwarka, there are submerged towns. Potentially they're human built things. We don't know exactly what they are, because nobody has put up the money to buy these archaeological submarines, which don't cost billions of dollars. I mean, they cost millions, a few millions, and we haven't had the money. Nobody has put up the money to do that kind of research. That is the kind of research which will give us the old foundations and the proof of our old foundations in a very scientific manner. Now we have people who throw money at all kind of useless things, and they are interested in starting a chair here or a chair there and get quick publicity. Why don't they take that money and invest in an archaeological submarine? This archaeolocal submarine, this kind of a technology is available now. These are submarines. Some of them are drone submarines. They go as a drone. You don't even need human beings, and they with cameras they give you the view of what's going on under the ocean. So we should invest in archaeology. We should invest in relearning the Vedas and Sanskrit internally within our own culture, within our own methods, not giving money to the outsiders who are Sanskrit people who are studying it using their own way of thinking and then trying to interpret it and give it back to us. And that's going to be the subject of my next book. That I'm criticizing the whole fashion to fund all kind of American Sanskrit scholars who are creating a huge amount of mischief, a huge amount of confusion, and then they are using that to train Indians and bring that kind of distorted knowledge back to us. So we must change that, and that research on our texts, on language, on mantra, on archaeology will convince us, will give us a data of going back 10,000 years. We will know exactly how the system has been and how it has evolved. There is not even a good book on the history of Hinduism. There is no book on history. There may be a book on this guru. You go to Swaminarayan, they've done a great job on the Swaminarayan movement. I mean, you go to Chinmaya Mission, they have a movie and a great history on Chinmayanand, which is fantastic. I mean, you go to ISKCON, they'll tell you about the, Lord Chaitanya onwards movement. But Hinduism in total, we don't have a place like that. We don't have a single book that is reliable, that can substantiate all its claims with backup. And partly it's because the data is so scattered, the data has not been excavated. So when you ask how old is yoga, it's like asking how old is Hinduism, how old are the Vedas, and how old is the Ramayana. These are very important questions, and rather than just giving you a random number saying X, I want to tell you that we honestly don't know, but it's much older than most of us think.
Okay, thank you very much.
Rajiv ji, we received one question from one of our viewers. He wants to know whether yoga is part of Hinduism only, or is it something which is also part of other religions, or can you call it secular?
Well, yoga has certain philosophical requirements to be valid. It's like anybody can take a medicine. I mean, if Bristol Myers invented a medicine, doesn't mean that it won't work on other people. Anybody can take it. Okay, so the whoever has produced a particular thing, the, regardless of who has produced a particular thing, it can be used by anybody. But what effect will it have? If a medicine is being taken, they will tell you that if you take alcohol with it, it will have a bad effect. If you take such and such thing with it, it will have no effect. And if you do it in such and such way, it will have a good effect. They will tell you, so your lifestyle and what else you are taking will determine the effect it has, which could be positive, neutral, or negative. So similarly, in the case of yoga, you have to have the deep state of consciousness that it takes you to, because it's not just a physical transformation. The deep state of consciousness it takes you to. If you have these ideas like the Abrahamic religions have of a heaven and a hell, and there's God sitting there and he'll punish you, and you're a sinner and you have to submit to Jesus Christ, and otherwise there's no other way out. If you are filled with this kind of ideology that has been installed in you, then yoga will actually have a clash with all this, and either the yoga will win and you will no longer be a member of that kind of a faith, or that kind of a faith will win and bring the yoga back and digest the yoga into that faith and distort the yoga. So the effect of yoga on other traditions depends on them, whether their ideas are compatible with the ideas that yoga requires. So, and this is a large subject. I think if you read my book, Being Different, you will get a lot of ideas on this. And if you read Indra's Net, you will get even more ideas on this, on what is the ecosystem that yoga requires. As you know from technology also, you cannot just take something out of context and just start using it. There's a whole ecosystem. It's part of that. So yoga is part of a lifestyle. It's a part of an ideology. It's a part of a worldview about the nature of reality, the nature of the self, what happens to us after we die, the idea of karma, the idea of reincarnation. These are all inseparable from yoga. Now, if the other traditions want yoga, they can have it, but they have to take all of this. They cannot just take yoga separated from the rest of it. They have to take all of it as a package deal. But they don't want to take all of this as a package deal because it destroys and undermines many of their sacred assumptions. So the problem is not yoga being unavailable to others. The problem is if it's consumed in an honest and authentic manner, it creates heartburn. It creates conflict for others. That's the problem.
Okay, thanks, Rajivji. The next question, actually, that's kind of connected, and you touched upon it, and we have been hearing a lot of controversy about this in India. It's about the word
Okay, the audio didn't come. The audio is blocked. Can you hear me?
So you consider
No, the audio, I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Amit, can you type your question?
Okay, yeah,
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear the other gentleman.
We can hear.
Okay.
Can you hear me now, Rajivji?
Yeah, I can hear you, and I can hear Pavan also.
Okay. My question to you is about the universal sound Om and we have been having a lot of controversy regarding it. So, do you consider mantra recital like Om while practicing yoga? It's just purely a
See,
part of Hinduism only?
no, yoga, you see, the idea is that Om is a vibration. I mean, it's like gravitation is a certain force, and the electromagnetic force is electromagnetic field is out there, and all these different things that science has decided, has determined are there, and they are not part of some ideology or religion. So the effect of yoga is a scientific effect. It's something we ought to study more and more and discover what exactly it does. And this is not now Hinduism is aligned with it. Hinduism is a yagna that includes being aligned with yoga. But the point is, it's the other traditions that have a narrow-mindedness. The other traditions are so close; they don't want silence. It's not only Om. Many traditions do not want silence because they think the devil will come in when there's silence. The silence is dangerous because the devil will come in. Okay, so there are so many things that yoga wants to do, wants to achieve, and some of them are prerequisites, like a certain lifestyle, a certain diet, a certain sattvic lifestyle, a certain attitude towards your fellow human being. Now these are not part of what is taught in some of the other traditions, so they have a problem with it. That is the issue. So Om we should not be compromising the integrity and the holistic nature of our tradition because somebody doesn't like one aspect of it. That's their problem. That is for them to, they don't like it, they don't, then they have decided not to practice it. Not that we don't want them to practice it, they have decided not to practice it. We don't want them to distort it. We want them to practice it, but in a proper way. They are saying they can't accept it in a proper way, so either they reject the whole thing or they'll distort it to make it fit. That we don't accept.
Right. Thanks.
That was nice, Rajiv ji. One question we have here is how can one make yoga as a way of life? How to incorporate yoga in a life beyond just physical exercises?
Well, I think if you do proper yoga, it's not just physical. I mean, for instance, a lot of people practice yoga nidra. Now, yoga nidra is you do it lying down, and it's a very profound state that you achieve. You lie down 30 minutes. There's a tape of a proper teacher. He guides you. It's a guided kind of a meditation. It's called yoga nidra, and it puts you in a state where the body is really in deep sleep. You can even snore sometimes, but you're alert. Your consciousness is there. You're alert. You're even witnessing your own body while it's like almost like deep sleep. So that's an example of a certain kind of yoga, and it's not asana oriented. Yeah, all the meditations are part of yoga, because if you look at the different levels of yoga, they take you to all the different states, including samadhi and so on. So yoga, I think we should not limit it to the postures only. It's not hatha yoga, which is the posture part of the yoga, but yoga in general. I'm glad that the Indian government did not say hatha yoga. They said yoga. Okay, so having said yoga, they are now committed. Okay, they are now committed to yoga, and it's for practicing Hindus like us to keep saying, okay, when you say yoga, you cannot distort it by taking things out. You cannot limit it to hatha yoga, because then that would not be yoga, it would be hatha yoga. So that's the job that vigilant people like us have to be doing, because I don't trust any government. I don't care which government it is. I don't trust any politicians. They'll take the easy way out to get themselves in power and be successful in their own concept of success. When our tradition is at stake, we are all stakeholders. It's not something we outsource to the leaders. We are all stakeholders, and we all have a right, we all have a responsibility to speak up on these matters. So I would encourage everyone who's listening to start a practice of yoga. Start with hatha yoga, start with yoga nidra, start with meditation. And then there is a stage when yoga is no longer limited to so many minutes a day sitting on a mat. You take a certain posture of yoga with you to your life, to your relationships, to your selfless service. And you see the same qualities, the same inner being also expressing itself in the external world. We are having by the way, the Hindu Student Council is organizing a major event, a major Dharma conference in New Jersey, September 11, and I'll be giving a keynote address there. And the theme is the inner and outer, the inner and outer. So you see, you have to understand that yoga is not just something for, secluded life privately that you do in your room, and then when you go out, you've forgotten it. It's a certain attitude and life and a certain posture, way of life that you take with you in all your relationships and in all your activities in the external world as well. And that is the yoga lifestyle.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Rajiv ji. We have another question, and you touched upon it briefly. One of our listeners want to know how India can leverage yoga and Ayurveda as part of building its brand.
Well, I think first India has to leverage yoga and Ayurveda for building its own inner strength, inner body. Just like at the individual level, you leverage yoga to build your own self as a person, your health and your clarity of mind and your vitality, your energy level. Similarly, at the collective level, we have to do collective yoga. We have to do collective yagna. The collective yagna is a very vast topic. I'm actually writing a book, not this next one, but 2 books later. The next one, then number 2, and then the third one is the one I'm writing on, the collective yoga of society, of nation building. What do we have to do for that? That's the whole topic of that book. So India as a nation, with so much diversity of all kinds you can imagine, for it to stay together and for it to thrive in a holistic way, in a harmonious way, it has to it has to practice yoga. Every single person inside India should be a yogi to the extent they can, in order for us to have the maximum performance, whether it's your cricket team performance, whether it's your job performance, whether it's your family life performance, or whatever performance, political performance. Your performance gets a turbo boost when you practice these kind of methods, because it raises your clarity and your consciousness so much more. So we must install yoga in all the school systems. We must have Indian Institute of Yoga, like we have Indian Institute of Technology, in every state. All the 28 states should have an Indian Institute of Yoga, where we are training yoga teachers. And we should be training women teachers, we should be training Dalit teachers, we should be training teachers from marginalized sections of society. They don't need to be learned, they don't need to have read all the texts, they need to be practitioners, they need to be adhyatmic, inner being people. If you use yoga as a system of human rights empowerment, rather than the Western idea of human rights empowerment, which is tearing our country apart and breaking India, we should introduce yoga as our human rights empowerment. And this would create a better society, and all the people joining it would become better human beings. They would have better jobs, better employment, more money. All of that will benefit. So I would say that before we export, and rather than exporting and forgetting our own consumption, we must become the world's biggest consumers of yoga. Right now we are not. On a per capita basis, there's more white Americans doing yoga and Europeans on a per capita basis than Indians. I mean, I know a lot of people in Delhi, they'd rather go and sit in a club somewhere and do whatever lifestyle they're having is hardly the yogic lifestyle. And it's a shame that we have to re-import Americanized yoga back into India. This is very sad. Okay. And the reason it's becoming necessary is because we haven't produced enough quantity and quality of our own yoga teachers. So I would say, and another sad thing, I saw a report from China. They concluded that they needed 500,000 yoga teachers in China, because it'll help the health of the society. They want to introduce it in all the schools. They really want to go big on yoga. So when this happened like 10 years ago, several American yoga teachers moved to China to start training academies. So yoga, which comes to the US, becomes Americanized, becomes digested, now gets re-exported as an American product to China, and those guys are thriving. So I have talked about this to so many Hindu leaders, and they all think it's a great idea. Somebody should do it. Some of them have gone and set up, a group which teaches 20 people, 50 people, 100 people, but they're not into scaling. They're not able to scale it to the extent that China needs it scaled. I would have thought that India would go and franchise it out. Indians would go set up these yoga centers. Indians would own them. India has the credibility in the eyes of the Chinese as the people who really know all this stuff. Why aren't the Indian big industrialists combining with the yoga teachers and gurus, setting up these huge collaborations to have a franchise which says, okay, the goal is to have 10,000 yoga centers all over China? Why don't they think on that big scale? So if you are talking about export, and if you're talking about yoga as a soft power, as a brand power and all that, it cannot just be a little bit hype for a month for the embassy people to get some coverage in New York Times, and from Indian politicians to feel like they've done very well. Those are short term, they're not permanent. You need to have an institutional presence. Where is the plan? I want to ask Indian leaders, where is your plan to have a made in India, owned by India yoga studio in every American neighborhood, or every American city, and every city in Europe, and every city in China? This would require tens of thousands of yoga teachers to be trained in our system and exported like we are exporting IT people. Where is that plan? I've been talking about this plan for 10 years, 15 years, but I don't see the plan. I see this more like, just to show off and to feel good. There is some occasional big event, okay? There is some occasional very big event, so everybody can feel we are doing a great job. But this job cannot be done without institutions. And these institutions cannot be just sitting in Delhi. These have to be in every town where the consumer is. It's like you got to learn from McDonald's and Starbucks, and you got to create a retail franchise. You got to have a retail franchise of Indian yoga, Hindu yoga all over the world. That is what you have to do, and I don't see that happening. That is a shame.
Absolutely right. So just following up on what you talked there. So like Baba Ramdev has exported a lot of Ayurveda. There are a lot of shops here in US now. We see in almost every city. Do you have any information, knowledge on yoga centers at that level being pushed out by Indian government or any of the Indian organizations?
No, I'm not aware of any such thing. I only know that individual Hindu yogis came. They set up shops. Their top advisors and trustees were Judeo-Christian white Americans. And when the leader died, those things were taken over by these people. So, for instance, the Osho Trust, which is headquartered in Bahamas, is run by about 20 or so Judeo-Christian closest disciples he had. But when he died, they owned the trust. They controlled the trust. So even some of the Osho establishments in India are ultimately controlled offshore.
Right.
So how did it happen? You see, because we just did not know how to control an institution, how to have successors. So when the leader dies, it should remain in the lineage. We just didn't have that skill. Similarly with Swami Sachidanand. Similarly with Muktanand, Swami Muktanand. Now you look at, the brother and sister, the two successors to Muktanand, who fought each other, set up rival groups. One got co-opted by one kind of white American. The other got co-opted by the other kind. I mean, they just distanced themselves from the roots. So I don't see such a presence for this yoga. Now, retailing yoga and retailing Ayurveda are different in the sense that Ayurveda can be put into a pill, and you can go online, read the benefits, and self-medicate. You can self-medicate. You need a teacher, a doctor, for advanced things. But for regular stuff, toothpaste and this and that and tonics and all that, you can sort of prescribe it for yourself, figure it out going online and just buy it. You just need a retail outlet where you can buy these things. But to learn yoga meditation, you need private coaching. It's like, you can't buy a box and become a cricket player by buying something sitting in a box like Ayurvedic medicine. To be a cricket player or to be a singer or to be a dancer, you are changing your own body, your own body's memory and your own body's capabilities. Yoga and meditation are like that. They're embodied systems. So you need a coach. You need somebody to sit there with you, spend the time and teach. This means it's very labor intensive. But the good news is it also creates lacks of jobs. And you could create lakhs of jobs for people who are marginalized, who need jobs, and you can give them empowerment, and you can say, look, we got so many lakh Dalits are yoga teachers, and so what are you talking about that we are discriminating against them? So many lakh women are yoga teachers, and how can you say we are discriminating against women and giving them lowly jobs? These are considered leaders and people considered gurus, and people go and touch their feet. So I think we can use a global yoga franchise movement rooted in Hinduism, no nonsense about separating this or that Om or anything like that out of it, funded by rich industrialists with gurus involved, and the government backing it. I'm surprised that the billionaires of India haven't had the imagination to create a joint venture with some gurus and say, okay, we have a plan, like there's a rollout plan to put out so many gas stations or put out so many convenience stores or whatever. Let's roll out yoga. And each year, like Starbucks roll out so many thousand new locations every year. Why don't we get a franchise, some top executives who know franchise marketing, and create an international franchise? I mean, this is something that I've talked about for 20 years. And people listen to it, and then they go back and do some. I mean, I don't understand. They can probably make a lot of money also. If you had tens of thousands of retail outlets where people are coming, lots of people from the neighborhood are coming on a regular basis to learn yoga, you could teach medicine, you could sell medicine, you could sell videos, books, you could sell many things through that retail network. But nobody has done it.